Just welcoming the awesome Blase Grinner to our BU podcast, Taking My Virginity.
Yes. How good is that? The podcast virginity. I'm feeling very honoured.
So honoured to have you here, brother. Thank you so much for saying yes and for just being you and showing up in the world the way you do and sharing the message and just being a real stand for man, for 21st century man.
How could I say no to talking about fatherhood? Like, it's the greatest job on the planet and the juiciest job. It brought up so much stuff. So yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll.
So just going to give a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of a disclaimer. We're going to get real and raw in true Chrissy style. We really get to the crux of it. And we really want to share some really potent things in today's episode. But I want to just let you know there is a bit of a disclaimer. We're going to be talking about some triggering things. So please just make sure you're in a sound safe environment where you feel held and have someone that you can reach out to if this does trigger you. We're going to get real, we're going to get raw. So I want to make sure that everyone who listens can take so much away from this, but also know that you're held in that too.
Yeah, and I just like to offer my services too. I do this for a living, is like provide spaces for men and their families. So if anyone listening to this needs support about what we may share, what go into, just hit me up on Messenger. I'll always answer everyone's question, and I'll be more than honoured to hold some space if it brings some shit up for you.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So to get us started, who is Blase Grinner? What's your story, brother?
Who is Blase Grinner? In this moment, the past couple of months, I keep getting asked that, and I just say that I'm a conscious man. That's who I am. I'm conscious about everything that I do, my fathering, my relationship with my queen, living on purpose, but everything is from this conscious perspective now. But fatherhood, that has been the biggest eye-opener catalyst for me to really dig deep into what my purpose is here on my planet, really light an immense fire that is just infinite now and unlocked so much possibilities and for where I want to go in life. It's been interesting too. Since I was 17, I wanted to become a father, and I'm 36. And our eldest son, he's just over 2 years old. So like 35 until I had children. So it's like 18 years of waiting, which was an interesting development. There's a few limiting beliefs and stories that I'd created around relationships before I got to that point of, I'd created a story. This is hilarious. No woman other than my fiance had a look in to actually, for me to propose, because I had a limiting belief that I wasn't going to propose unless I knew I wasn't going to get married. And I only unraveled that like 4 years ago. And so all the women, so that was pretty crazy. Even though I wanted children, like really wanted children. And I also knew that I wasn't going to have children just to anybody. I wanted to like be with a soul partner sort of thing. So that was interesting to have that kind of for like 15 years.
That's so potent.
Yes.
And
yes.
What a incongruent feeling knowing that you want to be a father, but then having all these stories around partnership.
It was really interesting, and it was just coming up from a split family. Mum and dad separated when I was 7, so I didn't want to get divorced. I didn't want to have that, and so I just created this limiting belief, and it was just really interesting, like how true that sung out. And the interesting aspect of that is that at the 2-year mark in every single one of those relationships, when the woman started to rely on me financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and really that it was the time for me to stand up and like really be that man on his own 2 feet, I'd get the out of there. I would bounce. Mm-hmm. And it was like all tied in with this limiting belief and self-sabotaging stuff and people relying on me and growing up as a man at 7 years of age, mum telling me I was the man in the house at 7, all of that all ties in. And it was pretty interesting how I got into that position to then propose to my queen and then have 2 beautiful, healthy boys, which we're really blessed to have.
That is amazing. So I would love to know, what was the catalyst piece? What was the piece for you that you just went, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore? and I want to have my family that I've always dreamed about, and I want to be a father, and I want to be a king to a beautiful queen. What was that moment?
Yeah, so we were both laying in bed. Minnie Moo was doing a personal development course called Soul School with Alexi Penos, one of our mentors. And Minnie's like, "Hey, can I bring a question that Soul School's doing to you?" I'm like, "Yep, cool." We're laying in bed, and the question was, "What what is something in life that you haven't achieved that you want to, and why?" And so Minnie said that to me. She's like, "Hey, do you want to sit on this for 24 hours and then come back?" I haven't told this for ages. And so we're laying in bed the next night, and we're like, Minnie's like, "Hey, do you want to do on 1, 2, 3?" And we're like, "Yep, cool." And so we're like, 1, 2, 3, and we both said have children, and we're just like, "What the?" And so like I hadn't proposed yet. We were just about to go into business together. So from a society's perspective, it didn't look like it was the right time. But both of our souls were saying, "Hey, we're ready. We're open to receive." And so, yeah, we just put a prayer out that night, and just it was the most intimate moment I've ever experienced with anyone on this planet. And it was beautiful. And I think it was like 2 weeks later, Minnie had fallen pregnant. And we just opened up to the universe like, "Hey, we're ready to receive." And yeah, both times it was pretty quick. So we're always pinch ourselves because we've had friends that have gone through IVF and miscarriages, and I know how traumatic that can be for both men and the women. And we've been really blessed with our two little souls that chose us, and we definitely know that they chose us for a reason.
Yes, I love that. I'm a big believer that our babies choose us well and truly before they come in.
Yeah, I've met the third one in the ether too. So the second time when we conceived, we were outside by the fire, and we're laying there after we had sex, and the around the fire we could see this spirit like out of the fire, and it's just like, whoa. And we both tapped in. I had a conversation, and there was a girl, and she was so powerful and strong. And I was like, "Wow, we're having a girl. We're having a girl. This is amazing." And we were both saying that we could feel it and could hear all this stuff. And it was about 3 days before we did this harmony test. So you find out like 11 weeks, 12 weeks of sex and that kind of stuff. And they had, remember that Ferris wheel they had up at Caloundra? There was a Ferris wheel that they had here. So I had this dream that I was on the Ferris wheel, and then there was a little boy in there, and he's like, "Hey, Daddy." And I'm like, "Hey, buddy." And he's like, "I'm here." I'm like, "Aren't you supposed to be a girl?" And he's like, "No, I'm here." And so that 3 days later, like my mother-in-law, Minnie, everyone thought that we were still having a girl. And I'm like, "Oh, I think we're having a boy," even though like I'd been talking to Tummy about the girl and everything. And then the harmony test came through, another boy. I was just like, whoa. And so, yeah, there's a girl in the ether. She's waiting to come through.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so potent.
Yeah.
Isn't it incredible when we get to this point in our life where we understand there's so much more than just being human?
Mm-hmm.
And that we're souls, and we're connected in the divine universe, and all of those beautiful things. Like, I've got goosebumps talking about it. And then we get to tap into like what's on the other side.
Yeah.
So magical. I love that. I look forward to hearing more about that as that unfolds.
Yeah. We're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to hear your journey on fatherhood and what fatherhood means to you firstly. And then I would love to hear about your experience becoming a father, and some challenges and I'd just love for you to speak into that.
Yeah. So fatherhood for me, and I love the father because also you don't have to be blood to be a father. And fatherhood to me is eldership, is mentorship, it's providing a safe space for a young person to develop into who they wish to be. I look at it as children of like just pieces of clay. And then it's our job as a father, as a mentor, as a role model, whether they're blood or not, to be that rock for them, that cornerstone, that axe, so that they can shape and start sculpting that clay into a young boy or a young woman that they wish to be in the world. And for my fathering, it's about conscious parenting, about allowing the conditions that I grew up with, and a lot of us are dealing with as adults now, to actually break free of those conditionings, allowing our little boys to cry and to scream and to be held, and to feel their emotions all the way through, and not be wronged and judged, and to be told to be quiet, and really just shake up the paradigm of what it means for kids to grow up in a different reality. Like the curve, the trajectory that technology is on at the moment, like we've seen so much, and the next generation, they're going to see the most. It's just going to be crazy. And so setting them up for that, allowing them to discover who they are, who they wish to be. And yeah, there's one, I remember my mum, there's one thing, like my mum, I had her name tattooed on my heart. She's like my bestie. The one thing I've always acknowledged, and coming into fatherhood, I was just like, man, mum did this so well. She never, ever wronged me for anything I ever did, ever. I spoke to my mum about everything, like wanting to smoke marijuana, wanting to finish school or drop out, and everything was on the table, sex, everything. And no matter what I brought to her, her facial expression never, ever changed. So I just had so much trust. Like I felt safe with my mum. And so that safety, when I hear fatherhood or parenting, it's really about safety. It is allowing children, because there is stuff in this world that isn't safe, but just providing the parameters of safety so kids feel safe, so they can develop into who they wish to be. I think that's really what fatherhood means to me.
Potent. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to speak into, so I know the topic for today is men on purpose. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to speak into, how do you get to that point in your life, in your partnership, where you are so on purpose in how you show up, in how you show up in your relationship, in how you show up as a father, in how you show up in life? How do you get to that point?
And it was through questioning. I was 27 years old, and I started questioning, like, who am I? Like, who am I? I had a spiritual awakening that was very colorful. And so from that place, it was, I learned a lot about, I actually tapped into the ether. I tapped in the astral, and for the very first time, and I'd never meditated before. And so I came out of this, and I was in the full lotus, and I was just like, what the fuck was that? And it was like, I'd gone on a bender, and then I decided to meditate. It was a long story. Don't need to go into that. But then from there, I started questioning, and the only people that I knew that meditated was Buddhists. So I started following Buddhism, Dharma, and studying Buddhism. And so I started really reading a lot of what they call Dharma and self-help books and spiritual personal development books, and started questioning myself, well, who am I? Do I have to keep believing who society tells me I need to be, what my parents tell me who I should be, all this other stuff? And so rather than pointing outwards, pointing that finger inwards, which was the very first time I'd ever done at 27 years old. And so from there, started to look at, like, what does it mean to be a man? Like, not just who am I? When I kept inquiring through that, I got past the body, got to this soul, this infinite love, absolute place of, like, that's who I am. Though I also have a body, which is called Blase, and that is a man. So what does it mean to be a man? And through men's work over the past 4 years, I've realized that for me, my take on what it means to be a man is to take full ownership and responsibility of our thoughts, speech, actions, and emotions. And for the very first time, at 36 years of age, I actually truly believe that I'm standing on my own 2 feet, that I am holding all of those, and also financially as well. Because growing up, my perception was that being a man was a provider, and provider meant the house, the car, the fence, a roof over the head, and financial security for the family. Your job was done. Now, as a conscious man, I realized that's only part of the parcel. There's all these other aspects to it. And through most of my 20s, it was like all of my 20s, it was like I'd have one aspect nailed, but then I wouldn't have any emotional support from a woman. I'd have emotional support from a woman, but I was broke. I was like blowing my money. And so to take full ownership and responsibility of, like, this is what it means to be a man and stand on my own 2 feet, that to me is living on purpose. And that is purposeful. I also want to highlight too that there's a lot of people out there that question, what is my purpose on this planet? And to those people, I just want to say that every single soul That your soul's purpose is to just live. We chose to be here to live a full human existence. Light, dark, good, bad, failures, mistakes, triumphs, everything is our soul's purpose to live. Yet we do are men and women, we have egos, and we are all individuals. So there's 7.7 billion beautiful souls on the planet that all also have a unique ability and gift and medicine of what that living looks like. Though I believe once we take ownership of and responsibility of ourselves, from that place, we really start to live on purpose and with purpose. And from that place, then we can really start to tap into like what impact you want to be placing on this planet. Because we're all here to serve a purpose for the greater good. And once we tap into tapping into that, I remember there was like, when I started questioning like, who am I? I was always questioning of like external gratification about career and jobs and money and women and stature and identity and all of this kind of stuff that was going to define who I am. Yet it was hollow. There was never end. The cup getting bigger and bigger and bigger, even the more things I would do and accomplish. Yet now being of service and giving without wanting anything in return, it's rewarding every day. Every day is on purpose so that I don't feel like I work a day in my life. I just live. Even the stuff that I don't like is towards and part of my purpose. So I have everything. The other day, Minnie and I were sitting there and I'm like, if we had $1 million in the bank, what would we be doing? And we rattled everything off. Everything we rattled off is exactly what we were doing that day and what we have in our life. The only difference was there wasn't $1 million in the bank, but we still had the exact same feeling of vibration. So for me, like looking into manifestation, we're vibing to have that lifestyle. And so it's only a matter of time until that present moment becomes into the now moment. So yeah, I know it was a bit of a tangent, but that's what I've been sitting with over the past 8 years.
That's perfect. Thank you. So for men that are, I guess, starting to wake up, so you've been a tradie in the past, like that's full, like Aussie bloke, Aussie battler, grew up in an Aussie battler home. So I think a lot of men can relate to that, right? Mm-hmm. So, and for someone who's listening to this, who is currently that tradie, who's that Aussie battler, who is going through all the motions, who's trying to be the provider, but maybe doesn't have all their emotional stuff together, and to hear you, they might feel like there's such a massive gap. What would you recommend to them for them to start to explore how they can show up for themselves and for their family, and what steps, I guess, to take next?
Yeah, so the way I look at this is that when I was in high school, my athletics coach, he was like an Australian coach, and he always told me that like 100-meter sprinter, he's the most important part of the race is the first 3 steps. And I look at with men, like sometimes we look at our life as a journey, as a race. And so these first 3 steps to get up out of the blocks. So as a tradie, where like, for me, when I was in a tradie, I had this spiritual awakening. I started feeling emotion and wanted to talk about meditation and all this stuff I was learning, but I felt stuck. I didn't feel like I had anyone to turn to. So to get myself out of the blocks, the first thing was I needed to declare to myself that I didn't want this life anymore. I didn't want this version of myself anymore, that this version of Blase was about to die. And like I got to a place of like, nah, enough's enough. I'm going to go all in and commit to not being this dude anymore. And so that was the first commitment to myself. Though I didn't know how to do that. I'd never seen anything other than tradies. I'd never seen a tradie leave construction and then start doing something that he loved. I didn't see people back then, people in men's work who looked like me. I always thought people in men's work were hippies, long hair, singing kumbaya. Didn't know they were tradies with tattoos that said fuck and cunt and all of that kind of stuff. So I didn't feel there was a place for me. So the second step to get up out of the blocks, the commitment to myself, the second step was to actually reach out and start looking for people to model off or coach or get mentorship of. Fatherhood. That's what I was searching for. was fatherhood. And so I started looking on social media, started following people and podcasts, watching YouTube, watching Facebook. And what I started to look at was filtering through the bullshit, filtering through the people that just wanted my money, filtering through the people that weren't living like they preached. And like after a little bit of looking, I reached out to a few, had some calls with some people, and it's like, man, I don't resonate with you. You don't see me. You don't understand who I am. You haven't walked in my shoes. And that was the biggest thing. Is like these dudes hadn't walked in my shoes. They'd come from, there's black and white. There was no grey for them. They weren't murky. They hadn't been addicted to drugs, alcohol, or porn, or been told they're getting locked up, or they hadn't had sexual trauma, all of that kind of stuff. And so I just was always on guard. But then I started finding these people that I really resonated with. So I reached out for support. The third thing, man, if you're listening to this, is then that this is the moment of truth. I had to double down, triple down on myself, and actually put financial investment behind what I wanted. And that was the biggest thing for me, because I actually valued myself enough to invest in myself. And so at 30, 31, I think 31, no, 30, 30 was the first retreat I did with Eckhart Tolle. I went to one of his retreats, and then I traveled Brazil for South America for 3.5 months. But that was the first thing I doubled down. It was pretty expensive at the time. It was about $5,000. And so, yeah, put money into that. Even though I was traveling, I just wanted to go meet this dude. I read The Power of Now. I was like, I want to meet this dude. I resonate with this dude. I love it, love what he's about. So that, and what I got from that retreat was that I started to value myself, and I started to have self-worth and self-belief, because I actually put some money behind me and some time and some energy into myself. So that was the first 3 steps. And then I believe that movement equals movement. So once that momentum started, it just kept rolling and kept rolling and kept rolling. It doesn't mean it hasn't been like smooth sailing, but man, there's so many rocky roads and bumps and bruises and everything. So just getting up out of the blocks, and I believe those are the first 3 steps, and they're the most powerful. They sometimes seem the most confronting, the most challenging. Though, if you look back in any aspect of your life, the biggest pivotal moments and your biggest lessons always come after adversity. And breakthrough only happens after a breakdown. And so just knowing that aspect of like, man, it seems like it seems like there's a fucking bottom of the barrel. It seems like this is the pit's end. It seems like I'm fucking stuck. Just know that you're in the first step. You just admitted to yourself you don't want to be here. And that's what it takes, because some people like to sit in that. They sit in that aspect of like, this is all that life can be. This is all I'm getting told I can be. Poor me, woe is me. And they get sympathy of people, and then that's it. And they get acknowledgement for that aspect. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Victim mentality. It's challenging to witness, because they get sympathy, and it's like it's a secondary gain. Why would I want to stop being a victim when I get all this attention and I get all this stuff? And it's like it's kind of like an excuse for I can just do and be whatever the I want to do and be.
Yeah, and the thing, and especially that we're talking about purpose here, is that people with the victim mentality, or in a victim state, those fingers are pointed outwards, blaming everyone, especially the world, and just like point those 3 fingers back at yourself. And then just like, once we realize, because I was in this, I was in this for like 32 years, that I was playing victim mentality. Totally. Even after the work I'd done, I was blaming the world, and I was very insecure, I was really jealous, and blaming that world. It wasn't until I pointed those fingers back at myself and took ownership of my manhood, of what it means to be a man, and started saying like things like I rather than you, that things started to change. My mentality started to shift. My self-love started to shift. Next thing, I've got a family and raising 2 boys and proposing. I took ownership.
Yes. And I think they're 3 potent steps to get started. To actually have the awareness to go, you know what, I'm actually playing a victim here, and I actually have the ability to change this if I choose to. And then utilizing those 3 steps to go, you know what, this, I am not doing this anymore. I think anyone who's gone along that journey can totally resonate with having that moment of like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Like this part of me is dead. Like, no more. And I truly believe that human suffering is our shit. Like, we choose to suffer.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Like, it's, yes, we've all gone through stuff. We all have a story. We all have had things happen to us, but they're not happening now. We're continuously sitting in the stuff, pretending like we're still playing a victim to something that happened, 20 years ago, if not more.
I always love that saying that everything happens for us, not to us. And if we can understand that, even if it at the time it may seem like the most traumatic, unfair experience, that this is not right, but if we can just understand it's happening for us, and that there's no such thing as failure, there's only lessons. If we can understand that, we can find the calm in the chaos.
Yes.
Of like this COVID stuff. This is a perfect opportunity. And so this is a little bit of a side topic, but the purposeful stuff is that I've circled up with 10 other men. We created CMB, Conscious Man Brotherhood. And so the 11 of us, through this time, we live by the motto, find the calm in the chaos. So the whole time that the COVID stuff's going on, all of this dilemma around the world, people trying to come over the top of us and say, you can't put men's programs out, no one's got any money, no one's going to want to spend, all of this kind of self-limiting talk. We're like, man, we're going to find the calm in this. We're all pivoted our businesses and we are all thriving. All of us are starting to really thrive, more so ever than the past 3 years we've been in business together, because of that mentality. Just find the calm in it. There's something in here for all of us. Tap into that. This is time to be innovative, which is exciting.
Oh, I love that. 100%.
And bringing it back to children is that there's a lot of stuff in personal development world around that, and especially in boys, that we suppress our anger and our sadness, but we also really suppress our joy. The joy, and that's what we're teaching our kids, is if they're happy, let it out, mate, and really allow them to feel that. The way I open one of my men's circles, one of the men's retreat, is 12 strangers get into a bus. And the very first thing, before I ask them any of their names or anything, I get every single man to share something they love about themselves. You want to see men squirm? Get 12 men to ask them to share one thing, just one thing that they love about themselves, off the bat in front of strangers. Man, that really pushes the comfort zone, because there's so much conditioning that we're not allowed to talk about ourselves as men. We can't be proud of our accomplishments and talk about them and experience joy. And if we do experience joy and someone else isn't experiencing it, it's not okay. Like that person that you were speaking of, man, we don't, that suppression aspect of it. It's time to break the shackles.
Yes, 100%. And I have a true belief that for as much pain and discomfort that we experience, we should be feeling the same, if not more pleasure. 100%.
Yes.
And I think, as a parent to a son myself, and I witness this in other people, we almost suppress a little boy's sense of adventure and being silly and calm down and all of those things, because they're so they're fearless. Their sense of adventure is next level. Their imagination's out of this world.
Yep.
And there is definitely that element where I've actually had to be really mindful with myself. I know certainly before I started waking up and being conscious that there was definitely a lot of programming that I had installed in my son, unfortunately, but now I'm undoing.
Yep.
But even now, when you do just still have that, you're on the conscious journey and you are more intentional and you are more aware, you still have moments where it's almost regurgitating and we're hang on a second, and we have to almost eat our words.
Yeah.
And just allow particularly boys to just be boys in a healthy way.
Yeah, and that's it. There is beautiful ways to express anger effectively, allowing them to really feel all of their sadness all the way through. This has been really big for me. With breath, he's very passionate. He's very, very much like myself. And so there's two aspects in this: the high energy, which some people would look at as ADHD. And so, but we understand that he's like myself, that we have an infinite untapped potential of energy we can tap into whenever we want. And he's like, well, we named him Breath for a reason, because breath changed my life. Meditation changed my life. And so at 2 years old, we're teaching him how to do breath work, how to do the moldy hongi. And so he's got this highly hyper-developed energy that is also, he's using, being able to self-regulate that. Well, he's going to be a weapon, because he's going to be able to bring both of the spectrums together. And like, that is just a superpower. And I see so many kids putting their, like so many parents putting their kids on antidepressant, ADHD tablets, all that kind of stuff, because they of like that regurgitating what people have said to them, rather than trying different alternatives. The other aspect of that is, I just want to talk about a couple of experiences I've had around fathering, breath, and conscious parenting. So we go out to coffee shops quite regularly. Minnie and I love taking the family out, and we love food and stuff. Go to a coffee shop, and 8 times out of 10, the boys are amazing. 2 of those times, the little man will turn it on and allow his emotion to come all the way through. And I know when I grew up, that would be seen, not heard. I'll give you something to cry about, all that kind of stuff. With the conscious parenting and emotional intelligence courses we've been doing, we're like implementing as best as we can conscious parenting. So there's been times of his frustrations. I've picked him up and I was like, hey, buddy, come here. That must be really sad. So acknowledging these feelings, and is there any more you want to say? Is there any frustration in there? And allowing him to voice it and let it all out. And the judgment and the daggers I get off this coffee shop and people, even if I've removed myself from the door and doing it outside, because he's loud, like he's taking up atmosphere. That, like, out of 50 people, 40 of those people are judging me and looking at me and shaking their head. Though every time that we've done it, there's been someone come up and give me a pat on the back. He's like, dude, what you're doing is fucking amazing. And that dude, just whoever you are, and that person that keeps patting me in the back, and for the people that are doing that, please allow me to pat you on the back. Just allow that one person out of the 50 or 2 people out of the 50 to pat you on the back. We keep doing that, because we are the people that are going to change the conditioning that we're breaking out of, that have held us back. And that the reason I share that is not to pat myself on the back, but to normalize it.
Yeah.
Just to normalize it. I only share that just to normalize kids, allowing them to feel their emotions all the way through. All of them, and all the spectrums of the 5 core emotions, everything.
Thank you. And it's interesting because parents are so quick to judge other parents.
Oh yeah.
Like I see it with mums groups all the time. It's like, really? But I think when we get to act, when we're true to ourselves, when we're true to who we are, how we be, what we know, and normally what we know is from our own research, not from what we've been told, that we get to be in that, and we get to go, you know what, I'm doing the best job I can. And if you want to judge me, that's on you. It's not actually about me. And that's a powerful piece. Powerful piece. And to be able to do that in a cafe full of 50 people, like, that is, I take my hat off to you, because so many people will shrink and will remove themselves or change the way they show up. And if you can continue to stay true to who you are and allow to hold space in that for yourself and for your son, like, and to be also a leader, showing other people how to actually step up in their parenting and their conscious parenting, regardless of where you are, potent. We need to see more of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I would love to probably start to close, but I would love to know what's one thing that you have been told that has completely changed your life. One piece of advice, something that has completely shifted things for you.
So it was fatherhood, and it wasn't something that I was told, it was something that I felt. And and to the men that aren't fathers yet, it's the way I described it was the moment that I caught my son, I felt parameters of myself that I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know that these existed. And I remember telling my Reiki lady this, and she's like, yes, but they've always been there. And you just tapped into unconditional love. Like, there's without even blinking an eyelid, like I would give my life for him without blinking an eyelid. And so just that experience of fatherhood and feeling that there was more to me than I even realized, because of that unconditional love, like that was the most profound thing in my life. Profound. And it also brought me to a place of questioning that I was wondering what would happen when our second son, Oak, when he came along, if I would feel the same, that would it go bigger? And so I had all this expectation. When we were talking about suffering before, I believe that when we have expectation, that causes suffering. So I had all these expectations I was going to feel something. I didn't feel the parameters shift per se, but I felt them amplify. So it was like just more, and it was just like that, like fatherhood, man. It's just been like the best thing ever. So yeah, they were feelings. I know that wasn't what you asked, but yeah, they were feelings.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think people can resonate too with that, particularly if you have stepped into parenthood. It's indescribable. Like what actually happens the moment, like the first moment that you hold that baby for the first time, and all of a sudden there's this little human that is so dependent on you, and you have no sleep. Like sleep is not even a thing, but you just sit there and you gaze like stupendously at this little human, and it's like you almost become this mush of love, and like, who am I, and like, when did I become so soft, and all all of the stories.
Do you reckon that's why babies sound like they do?
100%. Because they're like, oh my god, we're like super like mushy. Whereas I think if we were actually talking to them normally, they probably wouldn't sound, certainly like as they start to talk, they certainly wouldn't sound like they probably sound like us, but because we're like, oh my god, I just love you so much, like
cool. One thing I do remember, coming into fatherhood, I got told, and I always tell all new fathers this because it was something that I didn't know, that in the first 3 to 4 months, don't be upset if the child doesn't connect and eye gaze with you and actually hold contact. And I didn't know that. I thought it'd be instantaneous, especially after having had a big experience at birth with breath. But then for the first few months, there was no contact between him and I. Like, he would look at me, but it wasn't that soul connection that my eye to eye gaze. And that was really, like, I'm so glad that the person told me that, because then it was like, okay, I didn't have that expectation that it was me and all the stories going on. That's one thing for, like, if you're going to become a dad, just be vigilant of that, and it will come. And when it does come, it's so good.
Yes, great share. I think that's awesome to finish on. So I would love for you to share how people can connect in with you. If you have an exclusive offer to drop in for our listeners, like, how can people connect in with you, what you do, who you're about, and just follow the awesome experience that is you?
Oh, thank you. They can just find me on my website, blasegrinner.com. At the moment, it's up, and there's some clunks and stuff happening, but you can reach out that way. Follow me on Facebook, and just reach out. On my website, got the men's fuel station. It just shows all the offerings that offer men, face to face, online, one-on-one retreats, everything like that. And then for anyone listening, I just would like to let everyone know that I offer a 1 hour free roadmap session. And so it's a free session for an hour. And it's been interesting over the past 3-4 weeks. I offered that. And there's been people that come on that call, and just from that call, they're like, hey man, I'm just not going to sign up for anything now. It's been so much value. And then they message me a month later, like, dude, me and my partner are just like kicking it now. They're like, so I just feel it's a nice way to give back to the community, add value to people's life. That's what I'm about. So, yeah.
But I just want to say thank you so much. This has been a freaking awesome chat. Just getting real and raw with Blase on the sunny coast.
Yeah, reffing.
Yeah, and pop in the cherry for BU podcast or parent.
Yes.
So just loving it. Deeply honoring you for all that you do, all that you be. and for how you're showing up in the world, particularly now more than ever. I have such a deep resonance for you. I know so many men that have really tapped into your program and that have changed as a result of what you do. So yeah, keep doing you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.